All right, so I got the radio upside down. Um, the last video, I showed you that the RF went from the antenna all the way through the radio, and I just said there's probably no local oscillator, and there wasn't. Now, if we look over here on our scope, there's the local oscillator. Let me expand it out. Okay, let's see if the camera's picking that up. Good enough. All right, so I had no local oscillator. I put a DX390 next to the radio, and I moved the dial of this radio back and forth, and I could not pick up the local oscillator. So right now, I'm running the radio on the 3-foot whip, or a 3-foot piece of wire. And that's what I use to test sensitivity on, just say, the ham bands. 3 foot of wire should give me CHU Canada, fairly decent. And that tells me I'm getting real close now. But what was wrong was there was a metal can with 3.1s in it. All three were slightly leaky. The other thing was from the plate resistor went down to the screen resistor. So that would set the voltage for the plate and the screen. And it was reading 500 ohms instead of 5,000.200. And I was praying because it was really hard. I left the can in there and then adding 3 floating capacitors in there for the 0.1s. And it wasn't fun at all, I'm going to tell you. And I kept thinking the whole time I'm going, this might not fix it. And I disconnected each capacitor in the local oscillator section and put my leak tester across it. And every one of them was good. The square ones, the solars. So in this radio, you can count on at least having a few of those metal can ones with the oil in them and the paper capacitor, those being bad. Most of your solars, which are square, normally they're bad. They're not on this type of radio. Now, this radio, I love the form factor, but working on it, you're in very tight quarters. My eyesight's not what it used to be. My hand coordination isn't. So what I do is I do a few wires each day. Now, if I'm checking capacitors, because I got the manual does have a pictorial, so you can get a little crazy with cutting one side of the capacitor out in order to use the leakage tester that I use. And you have to make sure that the set is not plugged into the wall or any antenna. And you put your leakage tester across the cap, which has one leg lifted out of the circuit. And then you test it. And all those were good. And the whole time I was working on this radio, I'm begging. I'm just saying, I really don't need this radio. It's really hard to work on. I'm not going to get an AM broadcast band out of it. It'll be great for 80 meters, 40 meters. And I think it goes up to 40 megacycles. It does the CB band up at the top. So, in other words, and it's a little scratchy when you change between bands because the wafer switches for the band change, all those are in those little metal boxes, and that would be a real bitch-a-rooney to take this radio apart to go any further. This is past the resurrection, and because when I got the rushing noise on all the bands through the radio, I was kind of excited. I'm saying, okay, I did enough work on this. I found enough bad parts. And then I noticed the local oscillator wasn't working. And that you got to expect that on a really old radio. And that could be the local oscillator. The problem could actually be in one of those metal boxes that are on the top. And if you don't know what I mean about metal boxes, let me show you real quick. Those guys, right? There's 4 of them. Yeah. One's an RF amp. two actually 3 RF amps and 1 oscillator. So it's a really good tuned radio, but it doesn't have the frequencies that I really am interested in. Yes, I do the ham bands at night, 30 meters, not 30 meters, 30 meters, 80 meters. And then before I go to bed, I'll sit and listen to them guys, but it's politics now. Years ago, it was, they would talk about building stuff and what could be wrong with their rig. Not anymore. Everything's all politics. And I do the radio to get away from that nonsense. But we got the radio. It's past resurrection time. I've done more work on it. And tomorrow I'll run the wire longer and see what else I can pick up with it and how good it is. And I'll probably report back. But you got to remember, how many people have really bought one of these things? You know, how many have got one and have never worked on it? It's really hard. It's not an easy radio to work on. And I don't have any problem in those metal boxes. I don't have a problem in the BFO unit. Now, is this moving? It's acting a little weird. It's probably like one of the connections. Hold on. See, the oscillator's working on all the bands. And don't ever worry about on the lower bands, the sine wave will be higher on old radios because tubes can do lower frequencies better than high frequencies. But you only need a certain amount to mix with the incoming signal. So I think that's it. All right, that's it.